If it's not fit for purpose and it's not going to give them the skills that they need, they may as well just stay at home and watch telly.
I enjoyed academia, I enjoyed school, I went into it to change lives, but I was very disillusioned. We are teaching them to follow this system.
Did it prepare you for the life that you have now?
As a student, no. As a teacher,
Stephanie Batey is a neurodiversity specialist, CEO of Inclusive Teacher Co., author and property investor. With 13 years in education, she helps families and educators navigate ADHD challenges while also mentoring in property investment.
How did you go from you were a teacher to you invest in property, and was there an overlap?
I quit teaching, and what the deciding factor was, I quit before I was ready, mentally, emotionally, financially. I just thought, I've had enough of this now, I'm done.
What were the first investment techniques you went down? What has worked for you and what have you not liked?
We started off.
So, Steph, I know that you are a fellow former teacher like me, and what I really like to do, although we could have conversations about how awful some students are, and some are lovely, is get right into your experience of education, and did it prepare you for the life that you have now?
As a student, no. As a teacher, yes, which is ironic. So I think as a student, I feel that I wasn't aware of the transferable skills. So I enjoyed academia, I enjoyed school, I enjoyed learning most subjects, not maths or science or DT. The left brain sort of subjects are not for me. But it didn't prepare me for being a business owner. But what I think did was actually being a teacher. So I've had two different experiences of education. I think being a teacher helped me with the transferable skills, some, not all, that I needed in business. But I think what we do as educators for our children that we teach, we go into it. I went into it very disillusioned. I went into it to change lives. I thought it was going to be like, Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds, or, Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society, and did jump on a few tables now and again. But I was very disillusioned. I went into it to improve the lives of children through education. I'm still very passionate about education, but I felt that all I was doing was creating workers. And
Yes.
I felt like I was an exam factory. And I feel that I learned more about neurodiversity, which I know is a topic you've touched on before as well. I learned more about neurodiversity when I left education, and I was in education for 13 years. So yeah, as a student, it didn't prepare me particularly well. As a teacher, I think it did, because I think it helped me grow tougher skin, thicker skin. It helped me with marketing, because I feel like teaching is just one big sales pitch. I've got to try and sell Shakespeare to bored teenagers. So I feel like it prepared me there. It prepared
I never
me.
thought of it like that, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I could have children who, a boy-heavy GCSE class coming in to learn about Macbeth, and I would have them leave still talking about it. And that's how I knew I'd done a good job. But it's just sales. It's just pitching. It's baiting them. It's almost like clickbait, but in real life.
Yeah. I mean, I understand those techniques because I felt like I did that. I wanted them to be engaged in the topic, but I never thought of it as being sales and marketing, which is really interesting. And my experience, both as a student at school, if I take it that part, was at the tail end of primary school. I got bullied. I got 1 year where there's something about me with I talk too much and I don't have the filter, which is somewhere in this, neurodiversity spectrum. And I say what I think, and I don't think of how it's received. And I don't think that that's always received well by some people. I was speaking to a coach and they said, what you got to understand is we're all Marmite. And if you understand some people will like you and some people won't like you, and you just accept that that's the way with everybody, great. And then those that don't like you don't matter. And those that do like you are the ones that you pay your attention to. And once I got that bit, it really helped. But literally from year 2 of secondary school, no one spoke to me at all. And I was in a girls' convent school.
Wow, okay.
And never been fond of women.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because now I spend a lot of my time doing stuff, speaking to women about their lack of education around money and around maths. And interesting that you said that you didn't like the left side of things. When I was at school, loved the maths, loved the maths side of things, loved the creative side too. But again, through school, because school can add so many labels that are not supportive. You know, I was told I wasn't good at languages. My dad spoke 7 languages, was Italian. There's no reason why I couldn't be. Every country I've ever traveled in the world, I learn a few words from. But my language teacher told me I wasn't good at languages. So I now don't feel like I can.
So that's almost like instilling a limited belief in you.
Totally.
Whereas, so was it a grammar school?
Yeah.
That therein lies the problem. I very much do not like grammar schools.
Whether you're going to school, whether you're going to achieve the results that are going to make them look good, and it's all about. That's the thing, is it's all about the scorecards. I don't really care how much you learn, as long as you get a good result that's going to make me look good at the end. And that's not mean. That's driven by the government and by the system that we have. But then when we got to university, because I only did a brief spell in college, they spat a lot there. We had a lot of ethnically diverse kids, and the 2 groups didn't like one another, and their approach to insulting one another, which is better than fighting in some ways, as long as you weren't caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They would spit at one another, which was just delightful. But that didn't last long for me before I went to university. And then it was about being with, theoretically, people that had chosen to be there.
Yes.
That was what I thought. It's not true.
No, it isn't.
They are just funneled into university there. And when I did my degree, it was free. And now people are paying for it. And I did, as you've picked up on the podcast, did this piece about education. And I am coming to this conversation with you of the opinion that anybody who chooses to go to university with effect from 26 onwards really needs to think carefully about their decisions, about whether that is the right decision for them. I've got a piece around the back of it where I go, if what you're going to do is come back to university when you're older, when you can afford to, and when you're making an informed decision to sort of maybe learn some of the ologies, really what are the transferable skills, learn about people, not marketing, because we can ask AI, not sales, because we can probably get a bot to do it or whatever, because that's the way it's going to go. But learn about what makes us human, that history, strategy, that's the sort of stuff I think we need to be looking at. I think that would be good. But all of the stuff that I taught business to computing students, computing to business students, and then I went on to teaching transferable skills, that engaging people in a topic that they don't think that they really need to learn. They probably don't need to learn them anymore.
It's interesting what you said about you used the word like funneled, especially when it was free. University, I paid for my degree.
Because you're young.
Yeah, I have 38 now. How old? It was long. It feels like 20 years ago. But use that word funneled. And I think that's really important, because that's what we are teaching our students to do. We are teaching them to follow this system where we literally go through a funnel, and at the end of it, we pop out with a job, a degree and a job.
Yeah, you're on a factory line, aren't you?
It's completely, and this is the system that I feel, and don't get me wrong, I feel like saying this, I have to always say what I say with the caveat that I think our teachers do, and you'll probably agree, like we go into it with the best intention.
Yes.
We want the best for the children, and they do an incredible job. I'll always advocate for teachers and for our education system to a point, but it's the word funnel you use is important, because that's what people do. We just get put through the funnel, we pop out the other end with a degree, if we manage to see it through with a degree, and then we go, right, where's the job? Whereas what I don't think is being taught enough is that, these are the skills that we learn, not just the knowledge, but these are the skills that we're learning in school, and this is how it could transfer into real life.
Yes.
I think there's definitely merit in getting a job and learning how to work with people, learning how to deal with conflict, learning how to work within a team with people and so on. But there's also that element of, I felt like there was something more, and obviously you did too, because you went into property and all your other ventures that you've gone into in your life. Do you feel, when you said about primary school, sorry, I know you're interviewing me, but I feel like this is what I'm touching on. Do you feel, you said about primary school you were bullied? I was bullied in secondary school quite a lot, and very similar to you, it's definitely ADHD. Sometimes I've got no filter. I'll say what I think. I don't beat around the bush, and you either like me or you don't. That's not my problem. But I think that prepared me for business, ironically. Do you feel the same?
But it doesn't prepare you to fit in that box in the classroom. Whether it's primary school, whether it's secondary school. maybe there's a little bit more leeway in university. I mean, it's changed so much even since I was a lecturer. We were much more lectures and then working afterwards, whereas we live near Royal Holloway and they never seem to be in classes.
Yeah.
I also, yes, so I absolutely agree with you there. I think also that bit about teachers, just to go back to that, was totally supportive of teachers, that I think that they are underpaid and undervalued.
Yes.
And I don't think that the system allows the good teachers to express their skills, if you like. So my son-in-law, it's more than this, but in like old speak, teaches PE.
Right.
But what he realised is that what PE does, much like I'm not good at languages and I'm not good at art, is what I've been told, but I love photography, you know, and I love learning words, but I've got those labels. He says that PE, I'm paraphrasing, PE teaches kids that they're no good at sports. But actually what sports teaches them is leadership, team skills, communication,
Massively.
blah, 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 all this stuff that could be in there. And he's been working with a team to rewrite the PE curriculum.
Amazing.
Now, we do not, I feel, because it's some other agency and I don't know all the details and I probably shouldn't talk about things I don't really know about, so I'll stop. But what we don't do is enable you, the English teacher, to create a curriculum that engages boys in Macbeth in a way that fully embraces and acknowledges that you may have a better idea than whatever the old system is. It just feels like we're still on that. We've not changed really all the way through. And there is such a lag in education that is just not keeping. Look at the last 2 years, how much AI has changed everything. Has school changed to take this on board yet?
I think they're making strides, aren't they? I've read that they were going to start teaching children a little bit more about AI, about how to spot fake news and so on. But I think it very much depends on the school that you're in as to whether you can teach these concepts as well. I feel like as an English teacher, I had the added benefit of I could take a piece of literature or piece of language, you know, a news article, or we could watch a clip and we could talk about it, we could discuss it. It wasn't always about reading and writing. It was about communicating ideas. And I was very fortunate in that I could do that. I did a whole unit for GCSE language on social media. It was very discussion based, but it prepared them to write their opinions. But then they get to the exam and they're reading an article that is completely unrelated to their lives. They can't answer the question because they can't access the article or what have you. And it becomes redundant and they can't relate to it. But it would be good if, and a lot of, I think, I was in a position of leadership to a point in secondary education, but there are leaders in schools that will say, you know what, here is the curriculum, here are the skills, but how you want to teach it's up to you. But then there'll be other schools that micromanage you and you don't have that flexibility, the creativity, the freedom. As I say, I think teaching's just one big marketing pitch. That's all you do. You have to sell it to them, you have to engage them, and unfortunately I think if the subject's boring, naturally children will switch off. And I think
being
it's
talked
a shame.
at is boring.
It's so boring. I mean, there were times when I was, you know, I turned my room into a zombie apocalypse safe haven and it was the talk of the school. There was another time we were doing gothic fiction. I was on the table pretending to be a vampire. You know, I was a little bit crazy as a teacher, but there were not, you know, and they remember those lessons. Whereas there was, you know, teachers who would email me and say, I've seen 2 girls in your form wearing fake eyelashes. I'm like, I don't care about this. Like, really? Are you really talking about false nails and fake eyelashes or the colour of their hair, you know? And I just think it's such a shame. If we had more sway and if the government were consulting with teachers to say, what do you think our curriculum should look like, rather than having these people in power making these decisions for these children whom they're just completely disconnected from.
Exactly.
If we consulted with teachers more and with the students more, I think we'd have a better curriculum. But having said that, fit for purpose, fit for everyday life. But having said that, I think it's hard to have, you'll never have a one size fits all. You will never have complete trust in teachers either. And I think it's tricky, and it's a tricky time that we live in at the moment as well, when we're talking about advances in AI, advances in business. I know a lot of people talk about how we should talk about money in schools, which we should to a point, but how do you educate a child on money when they, I strongly believe if you go into be a mathematician to a point, you actually need to have strong reading skills as well, because ultimately it comes down to comprehending the words in front of you. How do you teach financial literacy to a 12-year-old with a reading age of 6 or to a 16-year-old with a reading age of 12? I think it's easier said than done to change the system, but we're not making enough strides towards changing that system, which is a shame, really. And I have to say, I'm glad I'm out of it. Yes. I'm really glad I'm out of it, and I make more money now. So,
there is that as well, isn't there? Oh, and we'll have a property conversation in a minute. But I think there's this piece for me around we need a system that we can trust. And in order to trust it, we have to have either some rules that we can see are being followed or being broken, or we need to have some sort of assessment that we see that there is progression. So we've got to have that. And we can't have, this is my school and that is your school, and or could we, that aren't the same, that we can't produce the same output, because otherwise then it becomes a bit of a lottery as we talk. So in one area you could have a great school, and in another area you'd have a poor school. We've got that already as well, so that doesn't work. But how do we create an education system that is not only fit for purpose, but fit for the future, fit for the young people, gives them those transferable skills that they need, which is actually almost far more important than some of the stuff they're taught. I still think that there is benefit. Geography, I mean, knowing where we are in the world and that we are one small country on a bigger planet. History, knowing that we are today, and all of this has gone backwards and forwards. But what if we just focused on, in primary and secondary school, the core skills and the transferable skills? So reading, writing, arithmetic.
Yep. That's
core, because without that, there's nothing. Yep. And then if we then moved on to, what if we had like the first half of secondary school of the skills? So I like communication, so we'll do bits about communication and debating and everything else, or I'm good in verbal rather than in writing or whatever else. Or maybe what we can look at is, working in teams, or maybe then that brings in leadership and we get some of that. But also a core skill would be how to learn. So teaching research, not just research as in like get your books out or use Google or whatever else, but how to find the answers to the questions, maybe even how to generate the questions, ask better questions. That if we focused on that, and then instead of going into what would be GCSEs and all that testing, let's do some tests to prove that the kids have got the core skills. That's the only thing that we test in. We then spend the last 2 years where kids then group up according to things that they're interested in. So sales and marketing, creativity, practical skills, anything else like that. And we actually then got the kids excited so that when they left, they were excited about education, and that they were then, I remember a term, and I don't know whether you still had it when you were there, but creating lifelong learners. I had this, I then worked in government strategy, education strategy for a while. And on the one hand, we were doing things about adult learners and lifelong learners and trying to encourage learning, which is a bit late after you've already told all the kids they're stupid and they come out the other end not loving learning or maths or anything. And then on the other hand, we were trying to keep the kids in education. We had NEETs, not in educational training. So we were trying to avoid having NEETs at one end and making lifelong learners at the other. But we hadn't tackled this bit in the middle.
Would you, I agree completely wholeheartedly what you're saying about developing their skills. Would you cut any specific topics out of the secondary curriculum? So I'm thinking, obviously, they do English, they do maths, they do science, but then you have other things like dance and drama and art. I think we shouldn't force children to do those. I absolutely hated PE. I was forced to do it.
Yeah.
I can understand why children do PE and the benefits of exercise for dopamine in the brain and focus and concentration and so on. But I think it's important that they do those subjects as well that we might think are somewhat pointless, because I also think that's where children find their passions. And I think, I mean, I've taught a lot of students over the time I was in education, and you have the students who absolutely hate English and maths. They cannot wait to get to drama. They cannot wait to get to music. And you know, I've had students finish year 11. I've seen them go into sixth form, into university, and they're doing performing arts, and they're traveling the world. And, you know, I think sometimes these subjects seem a bit redundant. If we can teach those skills through those subjects,
yes,
but also students start to get a sense of what they like and enjoy, it's almost like, again, it's a filtering process for them, isn't it? So by the time they get to GCSE, they say, I don't want to do dance, don't want to do drama, I hate music, hate art, I'm going to do this, and this instead. I don't think that's a bad thing, but I think what needs to be more explicit, to reiterate what you've said, is to teach the fundamental skills through those subjects
as well. Yeah.
So I was head of whole school literacy. So it was my job to ensure that reading, writing and communication was being taught explicitly. The trajectory of those skills was being taught explicitly and part of the teaching or part of pedagogy. And a lot of teachers would say to me, but we've done literacy before. And I'm like, actually, no, this is not a bolt on. This is, how do we teach them vocabulary? How do we teach them how to communicate? How do we teach them to summarize, to synthesize, to argue, to evaluate? To, you know, all of those. Literacy is communication and reading. And the teachers would say, oh, we've done this before, rather than seeing it as part of what they should be teaching.
Yeah, that it's separate.
It's not a separate subject.
I'm teaching science. I don't need to be teaching literacy.
Exactly.
But in science, I need to be able to do the research, communicate my results.
Absolutely. And even some of the vocabulary that children need in science, you know, I've analysed some science GCSE papers, and they've required a reading age of 18. And we're asking 15, 16-year-olds to sit these papers. So if they've not got that high reading age, well, then we need to be teaching explicit reading skills, retrieval, inference, deduction, summary, synthesis, evaluation, analysis. And we're not teaching that, not everybody, I have to say, but it's not being taught explicitly. So I think keep the subjects. They can filter out what they like and what they dislike, and then as long as we're teaching those explicit skills through those subjects. But I think what's also missing is teaching them how those skills are transferable into real life, whether that's self-employment, employment or entrepreneurship. I think Wales are getting this right now. There is a new curriculum for Wales. I believe they've started teaching it now. And it's the idea that different subject areas, so different faculties, come together. So you have English are collaborating with languages, which is good for English language, whereas I think literature should communicate more with history and RE. But you have these different faculties collaborating on teaching sort of joint projects and teaching how what they learn in these subjects are relevant to real life. But I still think it's heavily focused on getting a job. As opposed to, actually, what if you just open your own business, or if you become an entrepreneur? You know, I have students who've said to me in the past, or one student, I'll never forget him. I taught him from year 8 to year 11. They were my top set English kids. I was very, very privileged to teach them. And his name was Archie. And he came to me at the end of year 11 and he said something along the lines of, I don't know whether to go into engineering or was it veterinary science or something like that? He said, I don't know whether to be an engineer or I think it was a vet or something like. And I said, well, you could try one and then you could try the other. What? Like, well, you could do one for 20 years and then change your mind and go and retrain and be a vet or vice versa. I can't do that. Why not? Like, I'm a teacher and I buy houses. I can do that. Why can't you? And it's this idea that we're not teaching them what's possible.
No.
I've had some students say, oh, you know, I'm just doing hair and beauty at college, but I need to find a chair that I can rent. I'm like, or you could open your own salon. Like, but the problem is there's no support for these children, these young people in what to do after. And I think that's also the problem. I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, Vicki. Sorry.
If we stick with this idea of there are these core subjects, but at the moment what everybody is stuck in is a corridor or a box. And where I was saying was that if we can teach some of those fundamentals, you asked, would I still have art and music and whatever? I wouldn't have them as compulsory. What I'd have the compulsory skills in the middle here. So this is about communication, teamwork, and then reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I think I would put some science in there as a core, because I think that it might be a topic that people wouldn't naturally gravitate to and experiment with. But actually, there'll be some kids that are fascinated, because that's where the innovation for me is.
Yes.
Is learning about how things work. And we can't really have car factories and whatever there, but science experiments we could, and biology and everything. I think that's exciting.
Yeah.
And I think I would also stick in some history and geography, because that places us on the planet and in our time zone. But doing it, I mean, again, you're talking about bringing things together. Why don't you have history and Macbeth together at the same time, which is, you know, we could take Shakespeare back in time and be talking about all those bits together.
Yeah.
And all the rest of it would be choices in the form of clubs early on in your second year in secondary school, so that then the kids chose, do you want to do cooking or needlework or pottery or creative arts, or what would be better now is film and photography and sound studios and drama and performance, and choose those. And actually, as long as you go, because we can do everything digitally, as long as you are attending something now, you're not going to be assessed in those.
Yeah.
There's no exam. There is a curriculum, because obviously we're going to have to follow the path. If you're going to be part of drama, what you've got to understand is if you don't stick with it, you won't get to be in the play. But if you're doing this and you want to go and check out the drama class, you can go and attend. You just have to be in a class. There's going to be an afternoon and you're going to pick one of these things and you have to show up.
Yeah.
As long as that doesn't, interfere, then they can have these experiments. They can see what they like. Whereas, I don't know about you, but music, I can't sing. I've got the belief I can't sing. Bob and I were talking about in the car. Isn't it amazing how when the record's playing, you can sing along and you know all the words and you can do the lyrics. And we were talking about some piece of lyric and Bob remembered one song and I had in my head this other piece of music, but I couldn't make that piece of music come out my head. And it's just, music was never going to be my thing. Playing something, singing, writing, it was never going to be my thing. But there were other pieces that I could have done, but I was made to do music. Yeah. And then you're doing it for 2 years.
Yeah. It boxes you in then. Yeah, I like that idea. But I also think the problem with that, it would be sort of like maybe extracurricular. Yeah. And I think that there are very few teachers, unless I feel like you have a lot of extracurricular opportunities in grammars, in high performance schools, because it's expected of teachers to do that. But in what I'm going to coin normal mainstream schools, I feel like a lot of teachers wouldn't do that.
But it wouldn't be extracurricular. It would be curricular.
Like part
That's the point.
But choice.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not examined. That doesn't mean to say it's any lesser. And actually it's going to be harder for those teachers, because now what you've got to do is keep that kid in your class.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wouldn't, as a teacher, I think, well, how could I plan for that? I'd have to know who was going to turn up, how the lesson would be structured. And I think as teachers, we're so set on measuring progress, to take that away to a point and not give them a test to work towards. I think that'd be hard for a teacher. Whereas I think for a child, it would be good because there's no expectation of success or failure. It's, do I enjoy it or do I not? And I think the advice I was always given was to follow the path that you enjoy.
Yes.
And that's where you will get the most enjoyment. You will stick with it. And then, I made a career.
That would be the job of the teacher then, not to test you on whether you wrote made a good play or you acted well or you did a good painting. But the job of the teacher would be to bring out enjoyment and innovation and creativity, because that's what I think we need going forward.
Yeah, but do you know what, Vicky? Some teachers are really freaking boring. No offense to any teachers, but my gosh, they're boring.
This is how we would turn over. This is what we need. We need to be attracting the right people into education. And the whole point of this, because I started off with this question for you and about entrepreneurship, is we are still today, there are all of those kids going through the primary school, the secondary school. There are all of these kids currently in university now. There are kids now signing up for university down the line. And if it's not fit for purpose and it's not going to give them the skills that they need for the new world that is coming, they may as well just stay at home and watch telly.
Yeah.
They could probably learn more by having a chat with ChatGPT or doing some Googling or whatever else. And teach your kids at home would be better.
Yeah.
And maybe the thing is that as a parent, and all right, Lordy, I mean, we're there already. You've got your full-time job. You're trying to do everything that you're trying to do. And you've got kids and you're trying to keep them alive and fed and clean and know where on the planet they are. And more importantly, even when they're in the house and you know where they are, you know what they're up to because now you've got this device that connects them with who knows what out there. Now I'm saying to you, you're the one that needs to bring in the creativity and the skills that schools are failing to teach your kids. I'm not putting that pressure on parents, but I'm just saying if there are things that you can do, we are so consumed with the need to perform because we've been through the system that has put us down the corridors, that stuck us in the boxes, that we're in that. We've got to recognise that our kids are going to need more than we've had and what can we do to help them? Yeah. And again, this is the sort of thing that communities can come together on.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also think that, just thinking about parents and supporting parents in this, I've always been a huge advocate for parents having really good relationships, really good communication with schools. And I think if schools had the time, as teachers had the time and schools had the time and parents had the time to come together to think, right, let's put our team around our children. How much better would that education be? How much better would that school experience? Because, it's a long, they were in school for years. It's a long time. How can we work together with parents? But again, I'm not a parent. I'm a dog mum, but I'm not actually a parent.
A human mum.
I'm not a human mum. And I don't have any intentions of being a human mum, but I'm a fan of and a massive advocate for helping parents with children in education. I think if there was more if there was a stronger relationship between school and parents, I think, unfortunately, sometimes the media perpetuates problems and they create divides between parents and educators. And I think if there was more synergy, more collaboration, then I think we'd have a better buy-in from the kids.
Yeah.
And I think it's about getting them to buy in.
Yeah.
And I think everything you suggested there in theory would work. But then you also have a lot of people at a higher level in government making decisions when they've never even been a teacher.
Yep.
And that for me is absolutely bonkers.
Or been in a classroom.
They've never been in a classroom. They're not even qualified teachers. They've not consulted with teachers. They've gone from, you remember the Gove fiasco when he was education, was it minister? And then didn't he become like climate and global warming or something? It's like, what on earth? Like, how are you qualified to do one job and then another? It doesn't make sense. And they're making decisions with inexperience and without proper consultation.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is also a problem. And our education system therefore becomes a one size fits all. But if we had parents and educators communicating and working collaboratively, we would get a better buy-in from the kids. I remember I've had a conversation with a trainee teacher that I was training years ago, and what if they're not interested in this lesson? And I said, listen, I could convince those children that the grass is pink. I said, we've just got to get a buy-in from them. We can, not in a exploitative or negative way, but we can manipulate their experience here. We can curate perceptions of education. We can curate a perception of you as a teacher, and we can get a buy-in from them. You've just got to sell it. And I think selling it to parents as well has also been quite a challenge too.
I definitely think that relationship with the parents is key because, again, the sister-in-law, she works in schools, and some of the horror stories that have come out of her schools where when they want to speak to the parents are aggressive. Yeah. And there's so much of that going on now. Yeah. Again, that's the point I've gone back to. We've lost respect for teachers and for education as a whole, and that's a real shame.
It makes me sad, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, it does, because I predominantly enjoyed my time as an educator in school. I'm still educating, but in school, I did enjoy the last 5 years of my career I spent in the most wonderful school with the most amazing team, brilliant senior leadership team, and the majority of the kids were nice. Some of them that I don't think really liked me have now started adding me on Facebook. I'm like, oh, okay. I shouted at you a few times, but you must have liked me somehow. But I feel like it's a shame that so many teachers are leaving as well. And I know we get the old mantra, the old sort of, we get so many weeks off of the year. I think if it was that appealing, then everybody would be teaching. There would, 9%, it was about 9% of the teaching staff in the country left. So it was about 43,000 teachers left in the 23-24 academic year. So I think if you've got that many teachers leaving, there's something seriously wrong.
There is
something seriously wrong. But I could be here all day talking about that, Vicki, to be honest with you. I'll get off my soapbox now.
I'm all for a soapbox, and I've probably been on mine as well. But let's put those sort of boxes down and see what else we can stand on next. So I started the question about what did education do for you as an entrepreneur? And you've mentioned, and that's part of the reason for having you on here, that you also are investing in property. How did that transition go? So what's a bit of the CV? How did you go from you were a teacher to you invest in property, and was there an overlap?
I always knew there was something different or more, not better, because teaching is fine for a lot of people. They retire, they have good careers. There are teachers who love their job. I'm not to say I didn't love teaching. I hated the system. I loved teaching, and teaching was like 10% of the job, unfortunately. It was a snow day. And this was the time before snow days ruined it for teachers and kids, because now they have to teach online. We had to adjust during COVID. And so instead of the kids saying, I'm going to go sledging, they've got to go home and log on to Zoom. Like, how boring is that? So it was before snow day, before COVID ruined snow days for teachers and kids globally. And I was just looking through Facebook, and the algorithm gods were at play. And we saw this ad. It was Martin Roberts from Homes Under the Hammer. So I know that company that lies behind that, and that's who I ended up training with. Yeah, massive mistake on our behalf, because I think they ripped a lot of people off unethically. And they're still, absolutely vile. Some of them, not all of them, just very vile, very unethical sales. But anyway, I was naive and desperate. So we went to this free seminar, drove on the ice thinking we could potentially die on the way, because it was semi-rural. It was in Wrexham, their place in this hotel. And we thought, stuff it, we'll go. And it never occurred to me that I could rent properties. We went with the notion that we could do what we'd done with our house. We could buy it below market value, add massive value, and have equity or sell it on or what have you. This woman was stood at the front saying, well, I use other people's money and I've now got tenants and I quit my job. And I was thinking, well, that's interesting, because I was at a point where I was considering other careers, but I think where teaching it gets you stuck, because you get to a certain salary. And if I was to change jobs, I would then have to take a massive cut, and I couldn't afford to do that. We'd already got the house. We'd already enjoyed our holidays, we'd followed the system. So we decided to invest in our education. I don't regret investing in the education. I regret not looking around and taking my time. But again, the ADHD, high pressure, I had to make that snap decision, very impulsive. So we did. And that was 2018. And then in 2022, I quit. And what the deciding factor was, I quit before I was ready, both mentally, emotionally, financially. I'm very glad I did. I quit teaching before I was ready in property to even take a decent income from it. I'm glad I did, but at the time it was damn scary. But I remember the head teacher coming in. It was just after the Easter break, and he said, we've got Eston coming in to inspect. Eston are the Welsh Ofsted. So we're basically being inspected. And at the time, my mum had just been diagnosed with breast cancer. My nan had not long fractured her spine, and my granddad was in and out of a memory clinic. And so I wouldn't say like there was no pressure on me to be needed, but I felt like there was a lot emotionally on top of me. And I just sat there listening to him thinking, F this, I've had enough now. I've been inspected year on year. How many times do I have to prove myself as an educator? And of course, you have to be accountable, but for the amount of stress and pressure that puts on people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a full inspection. It was something like year 8 in literacy, which was my remit anyway. So I didn't have anything to worry about because I did my job really well. And I was proud of the way I conducted myself in my career. So I followed the head to the office and I said, I'm handing him a notice today. And it was quite emotional because I taught both of his daughters. He was a great head teacher. I loved the school. I loved my team. But it was time, because I'd always thought there's got to be something more for me than getting up every day, going into this really noisy school. And I'm not a morning person at all. And I've learned a lot about my chronotype, my sleep type now, going into a really noisy school and then having to just be alert and answer 1,000 million questions in one. And I enjoyed it a lot of the time, but a lot of the time I was exhausted. I never wanted to be in mainstream education forever. I was getting a little bit frustrated with the system and having to just churn out exam factory. That's all it was. It was, here's what will be on the exam. Now, whilst I'm teaching them the skills, the writing skills and the reading skills, not every child attributes answering a question in an exam to a specific skill. And that's quite difficult. It's difficult. It's easy to teach content and knowledge. It's harder to teach skill. And not every student knows how to transfer skills. And I just felt like I was fighting a losing battle. So I quit. And then we went like whole hog property. But unfortunately, along the way, I had 2 failed businesses, not in property. But I did team up with a particular property mentor from that education company who almost financially ruined me. I trusted this person explicitly.
Oh, I can't wait to have the off.
Oh, I'll tell you.
I'll
tell you. You might know who it is.
Sure
I trusted this person explicitly. I followed their advice. I was doing well in property, but this person steered me away from doing property education. But I wanted to give people, beginners, a better, more ethical, more comprehensive beginner education than what I had without the upsells, without the unethical sales, without the pressure. Mindful it wasn't my only income either, so it didn't matter if I got business or not from people. But I teamed up with this person, started a business with this person, and it failed. But it turned out this person was just trying to divert me away from property education because this is what this person did as well. It's very little collaboration. So I had 2 failed businesses, not in property, but touch wood now. It's all seemingly going to plan. We've had to alter our portfolio a little. We've had to sell quite a few off because we bought properties based on this person's advice and it was a mistake. So we've rectified a lot of stuff. But what it's given me is the freedom to do other things, publish books, do speaking events across the country, to do events in schools and give educational talks on entrepreneurship to young people. It's given me the scope to start Inclusive Teacher Company, which is the neurodiversity consultancy. It's been tough, but I'm so glad that day I made that decision. And I went home to Phil and I was like, "Sir, quit my job today." I handed him a notice. So in teaching, you've got to give a whole term, haven't you? So I said, I'm not going to finish till the summer. My last pay slip will be in August. And then, we'll just see what happens. And he was like, "Oh, I knew you were going to quit, but I didn't know it would be today." And do you know what? I still had doubts then, but my God, I'm so glad past tense me did that. It was quite impulsive. I knew it was going to happen, but it was pretty impulsive to just do it there and then. And I just thought, I've had enough of this now. I'm done. But you know what? I think my teaching got better. Leading up to the months where I was leaving, I think I became more patient. I was always relatively patient.
Will have just
it just melted, and it's not that I didn't teach them well. I got great results that year as well, particularly with my A-level class.
But it's how you experienced it. Once the pressure just left, and it just felt like finally I was doing something that went against the system. And it's that poem, it's the road less travelled. 2 roads diverse in a wood. I took the one less travelled, and that has made all the difference. And I think if I hadn't have backed myself, if I hadn't have made all of those mistakes, if I hadn't suffered 2 failed businesses, financial losses along the way, I wouldn't be where I am now, which is an exceptionally comfortable position, just about ready to just grow. And I think if I could give that
to education and show other teachers as well that you're not a tree, you're not stuck. You can do whatever you want. But a lot of people will say, well, I haven't got time or I haven't got the money. But when you've got that mindset, then you'll never have the time.
That's so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we've travelled very parallel roads in the leaving teaching, moving on into property and everything else, and the books and the speaking and everything. So that's fascinating to hear it from you as well. What were the, and especially as we probably started with the same company, what were the first investment techniques you went down? What has worked for you and what have you not liked?
We started off with buy-to-lets and I wish we hadn't.
Okay.
So we pulled equity out of our house to begin.
So where are you based?
So location-wise.
Yeah.
So we live in North Wales.
And where do you invest?
I'm selling a lot off now, so our portfolio is in the Northeast.
Oh, okay. That's funny, isn't it? Because I've come from down by London to come up here and you were here and then you went over there. Okay.
Crackers.
So you're moving all that stuff from over there.
Yes. So we're selling quite a lot off now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we started with the buy-to-let. So took equity out of our house affordably.
Yeah.
Bought some buy-to-lets, but we also angeled money as well.
Yeah.
So then, and this is all on the advice of our mentor.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I should have took the equity and flipped and built capital on my capital on my capital.
Right.
And I think if I was to do it all again, I definitely would flip. I would build money on the money.
It's also about the time of the market, because if you were starting 2018, you were probably okay there, but you got to look at, there have been times like when I started, the flipping didn't work then because the market was, I started in 2008 and the market crashed.
Oh, yeah.
So there was no flipping to be done there.
No.
So,
but you could get a money in, money out deal, I've heard. I mean, 2008, I had a memory blank. I was just drunk at uni most of the time. But I've heard that a lot of people, it was like an investor's playground in 2008.
It was, but that didn't mean to say that you were buying good deals. And it didn't mean to say that you could hold those deals. I mean, I still remember a story of someone who's quite a big name now. And we started out at the same time. And where he'd done the, same day remortgaging, which basically was a variation on mortgage fraud at the time, and moved into mortgage fraud. My first deal was almost mortgage fraud before it was pulled at the last minute. Yeah. That it meant that you were max 100% loaned. Great, that sounded good. But then when the market crashed, all your houses were upside down. And if you hadn't bought well in the first place, you could then, so if you think about 2008, you could buy and have no money left in.
Yeah.
But the values dropped, which meant that you weren't making a capital gain, you made a capital loss.
Negative equity.
Negative equity. You then had interest rates rise, which if you hadn't bought well meant that you didn't have the cash flow. So you couldn't sell because you were negative. You couldn't pay the mortgage because you didn't have the rental coverage to cover the mortgage because the mortgage had cost, the interest rates had gone up. And people, and then I'm sliding in behind buying up the repossessions.
Yeah.
So whenever it looks too easy and people rush, then that's when you've really got to get your maths right. So while it sounded like it was a good time, it was actually I thought it was quite a tough time.
I bet.
And so I've probably got a smaller portfolio in that period than a lot of people around me, but I slept every night and we went on holiday.
That's the difference, isn't it? Whereas people will rush into it because of, a lot of hype that a lot of these social media education companies.
It was slightly before social media. I'm so old. Yeah. But I mean, I would go to speaking events and you'd see all these big names up at the top. 5-8 years later, they're the ones that have crashed. And
I think that's still happening now. And I think when we first started, it seemed like a race to just how many properties have you got? How many properties have you got? And now I'm like, actually, well, the more houses I've got, the more headaches I've got.
Yes.
So I'm now thinking of a strategy where we can leave a couple more for a couple more years, sell them, take that equity and just invest it passively with other people.
Yeah.
Because I've had the growth. Now I don't want a headache. Having said that, I can't complain because that's what actually helped me get out of my job.
Yeah.
to be fair.
So if you're pulling out of your buy-to-lets in the Northeast, what's replacing that?
We have invested with a developer.
Okay.
And that's
so you put some of your cash in with a developer and they're going to do the work.
Yeah. And it's a friend of ours, to be fair, as well.
Right.
It was introduced to me by my book publisher, funnily enough. And over the last couple of years, we've become friends, developed a lot of trust. So I've said to this person, I'm going to give you quite a considerable sum of money. and I want some money back. I'd also like to learn a little bit about what you do. I wouldn't say it's like an earn and learn mentorship because he's calling me and I'm too busy at the moment to pick up. But it's very much if I've got a question about something that I'm doing or what he's doing, we spend time together. We're collaborating in other ways through lots of different avenues. There's just plenty of ways that we're all making money together, which is great. And it's not just all in property. But yeah, we've sold a few. We're selling a few more. We just didn't get the growth that we wanted. I'm from the Wirral. I'm from Birkenhead, and I wish that we'd have started. Oh my God, we look back at the ones that we were viewing back in 2018-19. I've still got a spreadsheet of it all. I said to Phil, oh my God, we could have had double our property prices by now. We could have been rolling in it. I can't believe it. But again, putting my trust in somebody who I believed had our best interests at heart, but was making money on every deal we bought from a sourcing agent in the Northeast. No issue with that. I just wish there was some transparency, and we've been taught to invest properly where we were actually originally looking on the Wirral.
It does seem so ironic to have been so close that we were all, because I was in London, my teaching was come up here, and because you were up here, your teaching was go over there.
Yeah.
It is a lot. Very much about who you meet in this business.
Yeah.
Absolutely about sourcing agents. I've done a podcast on that. I don't know what order you're going to be in, but if that's before you, I'll put the link in there. But very much about making sure that you understand that this person who is going to help you find property, if that's the route you choose to go, what their experience is, what their agenda is, and how they are helping you. I know when I source for clients, and I don't bother to talk it this way, but we start off with some financial coaching right at the beginning, like what's your financial objectives? We're looking at wealth strategy, what's the long-term plan? And then we're looking at what investment technique will be the best for you if you're coming into it. But then once I've gone through that, and then we're doing the sourcing, which is where most sources start, which is the project management bit, I then follow on the project management bit with business mentoring. So making sure that my clients can make this business run, because now it's not about buying in personal names, it's buying in the limited company. It really is a business. It's always been a business, but now it's a limited company business with all those pressures, making sure that goes forward. So it's about, like I say, the mindset, the money, the project management, all the way out the other end. That's not what everybody does.
No, they don't. So you're teaching them how to be a CEO, which is what's been needed at the beginning.
Yeah.
How to run a business. We weren't taught that.
No.
I wasn't taught that. We bought some in personal names. I've got some. My partner's got some. We've got some together. We're not married, but we've got some jointly owned as well. Then it was limited company, then another company, then another company. We shut them down. We kept one. But it got us in
Bob and I.
It got us in a right mess, if I'm honest with you, because then I'm in higher tax. I'm still in higher tax. And I'm like, well, if I sell this property now, how much capital gains have I got to pay? Or I've got to close this company, take a loss on it, and then sell this one in my personal name, so I don't have as much capital gains to pay on that one. There's so many moving parts, and they focus on building your power team and getting the right advice from people. And that's fine. We can have accountants, we can have solicitors, but ultimately we need people to teach us how to run businesses.
And that was never there.
And that was never there. It was very much, right, get your first property, use other people's money. Very dangerous advice that, again, these are and what really grinds my gears, one more soapboxing, what really grinds my gears is these are the same bleeding people who say education's failed you, school has failed you. Well, what the hell are you doing to help me? You're putting me on another path that's one size fits all. You are exploiting me. You are selling things unethically. How are you different to school? How are you making me succeed? You are not helping me succeed. You're not even measuring progress. None of these education companies can effectively measure their progress. And I said to the one that we trained with, I remember saying to the trainer in front of everybody, I'd like to see your success measure. I'd like to see how you measure progress of people who invest 30 grand into these courses. What percentage I've got more than 5 houses, what percentage stop after one. And that is what's great. They're the same people who say school failed them, and yet they are replicating the same harm and same damage by getting people into financial messes. And somebody that
because
even
now you're
worse,
in debt.
Exactly. And these people, even myself, we could be coming from a place of desperation.
Yep.
We could be vulnerable. We might be dyslexic, dyscalculic, autistic, ADHD. They're not taking that into account either. And it's so unethical. And I said this to somebody once, and they said, well, we're all adults. We can all make our own decisions. Yes, correct. But that means that there's more onus on you as that educator or that salesperson to be more ethical in how you're persuading people to make these decisions.
Because you're in a room that has been NLP.
Oh,
I was
to death, yes.
I did my training, and I still think it's with the same company. And I then became part of the backroom team. I would be one of the ones that came and did the case studies at the front because we had 60 people show up every weekend for 3 days to do the training.
Yeah.
Out of that 60 people, I know that there were probably 5 to 10 that went through that whole cohort. I became part of the ones up the front doing, this is my story, et cetera, et cetera. But then what I learned is what they were doing at the back, which is how they set up the homework, how they triggered the people. So who did this? Hands up. And then at the back of the room, you're spotting that person put the hand up for that person put the hand up. You then from the back of the room are making the relationships with those people, knowing in advance how they did on certain tests, therefore knowing what product you can sell them. I know that whenever there's a piece of homework, my hand was way up there. Yeah, look, me, I did well, because that's my personality style is I love succeeding, and I am the ultimate student and want to do well for teacher. But what I'd actually done was put my hand up at the back of the room. That meant that we were clobbered with the biggest package. And again, in some senses, I don't regret what we invested in because it's got me to where I am today.
Yes.
However, I overpaid for what I got.
Yes.
I don't feel like I got the full value. I know that I bought in so many modules. They didn't even deliver the modules.
I think it's definitely the same company.
Yeah, we bought in, there was 4 of us. So Bob, myself, brother-in-law, sister-in-law. We bought in 2 mentorships. We only ever got 1. And none of that is reclaimable, but it's all a lesson. Yeah. And I think on that point, we probably should stop. But I feel we've got more to talk about. So let's continue this conversation on another podcast. Yep. I'll make sure that you all get the links. What I usually do at the end of the podcast is to say thank you. Thank you very much to you, obviously,
Thank
Steph.
you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
I've really enjoyed this. And then obviously, thank you very much to you, the listener or the viewer. And what I want to do is leave you with 3 whooshes so that you've got that little bit to take away and to take action. And what I like to do is to try and create it as a question, but I don't know if I can do those. We'll see. And I'm going to do 3, and that'll give you a chance to come up with 1. And then I'm going to ask you a better question. So my insights from this, if we go back to the education, will be, I suppose, a little cheeky one, that I'm not alone in thinking that there's something wrong with the education system. No. What would the question be? I think whoever you are out there will be some young person in your life, whether it's your child, your sibling, your relative, your neighbour. What could you do to improve their educational experience? Could you support them in some way? So what support could you offer to young people to improve their educational experience? And if you don't have kids, could you take your experience and go and speak in school? So there's that. Number 2 would be, no matter what your educational experience is, actually, I'll use the word better, but you know what you're capable of, know that you're capable of, no matter the labels that you've picked up at school, and how can you be the best of you? And if you don't feel that you're getting that in school, or again, if you look at the young people around you, you don't feel that someone you know is getting the best in school, or you're an adult now and you didn't get it, what can you do to acquire the skills that you want that let you then go on that path that you wanted to? And then I'll do a property one, which is, who is the best person to support you on your property journey, whether that's a property sourcer or a property educator? Who is the best person and how can you find them? And a little hint there is, look at what they've done, look at their experience, look at whether they're active now. And if that matches the journey that you want to go on, don't be swayed by the fact that somebody's got hundreds of houses that they bought 20 years ago, but they're doing nothing now, current, or they're only doing things with other people, which means they're off their plans. What are they doing that is current, and therefore what can they teach you? So that would be my 3. What would yours be?
3 wishes.
Well, you could just do one. So it's a whoosh because it's a play on my last name.
Yes,
okay. So it's a whoosh.
3 wishes.
Whoosh. So it's just one whoosh, which would be one big insight to help someone who's listening take something even more away of value from this conversation.
I think if you're making a choice to do something different in your life, like we've done, to do your research, to make sure that, like you said, to research that person that you choose to help you, if you indeed choose somebody to help you. But do your research before you choose somebody to help you. See what you can learn by yourself. And if you think about whatever idea you have to make that change, to do something different, I would say if you sit on that idea for more than a month and it's still passionate and it's still got a fire, you still got that fire inside you, do it. But sit on it for a while, research it for a while. Don't make impulsive decisions like I've done. Don't rush into choosing the first person that impresses you like I've done. And it's easy to do. And I think, from a teaching background, I just thought everyone was trusting, everyone wanted to work in a team and help everybody for the benefit of everybody. That's not the case in business. Not everybody has your best interests at heart. So do your research. Sit on it for a while, do more research. And if that fire is still burning inside you and you still want to go for it, go for it. And it also, if it doesn't work out, that's fine. Do something else.
Yes.
You can move on from something.
You'll learn from what went wrong and do the next one better.
And it's never a loss, it's always a lesson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks.
Say that one again. I think
there's never a loss, is always a lesson.
I love that. That's a great one. Thank you very much. And just to finish off, if there was something that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you on this topic of education or property, or have I missed anything?
No, I don't think you have. I think we've covered absolutely everything. And I did read that question before I came here because we were discussing the conversation via email. I think it would be good for educators, though, in general, to explore how can we make our current education system, how can we make the skills that we teach them more explicit? And how can we teach them that it's actually transferable into real life?
Yes.
Because the education system isn't going to change anytime soon. And when it does, we're always going to be behind because research is always catching up.
Yeah.
So it's about how we can take what we've got and make good with it. The skills that we teach them more explicit into how they transfer into real life, whether that's a job.
Skills over content.
Skills over content, always, whether that's a job or a business or self-employment or entrepreneurship, whatever. How can we make those skills transferable and more explicitly transferable? How do we teach them how to transfer skills? Because if the system is failing them, we've got to take what's good about that system, and there's a lot of good about it still. So we've got to make it more explicit as to how we transfer it into real life, because not every child, not even every educator knows that either. So I think that's one thing I would have maybe talked about, but I think we covered it, to be fair.
I think maybe it's in there, it's implicit, but that's made it explicit. Stephanie, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.